Hey you guys, welcome back to the channel. We review anything and everything. And today we're getting to another Marvel Legends series character. This is Thanos. Now, the Infinity Gauntlet version. Now, it's an older figure, but I had him for a while, been meaning to do this video, but I hadn't had a chance to get around to it. Disclaimer, I want to get it out of the way, but anyone who's familiar watching my channels already knows this. Any Marvel Legends figure that is in a box where I can see the figure, I am not going to unbox them. So this is a non-unboxing review. If that is not for you, you guys can politely just exit the channel now. If you guys don't mind watching my review on this, stay tuned. Just really kind of go over some of the things that go into the box, as well as kind of give a little bit of lore or whatever insight that I might have on the character, especially things that come from my perspective in terms of what this character or any of the characters that I present on this channel meant to me during the time that I maybe learned about them or whatever was the case. So just taking a quick look at the box at the moment and everything, just well, the box in general. You see you got some art over here of Thanos with the Infinity Gauntlet. Now this is Thanos from the comics. This really was around the time frame. I want to say it was like 93. See the layout there. That is the same type of font and colorway, design, whatever you want to call it, that was on the comics at the time. Here you have more of the same that was on the other side. And then on the back here, you have Thanos in his chair with Mistress Death, and he's posing with the gauntlet in his hand. It says here, the Mad Titan Thanos seizes control of the hallowed Infinity Gauntlet and wields near omnipotent power. Who can stop this vicious new overlord? So well, I'll get into the lore in a moment. So first, let me just go over the character real quick. So here you can see that he's massive in his size, very large. He has the Infinity Gauntlet in this hand while he's snapping. These two are fist hands without the Infinity Gauntlet, and this one is an Infinity Gauntlet hand where his hand is open. So I think it's at least nice. I think this is considered a deluxe figure. I think it's at least nice that they give you a couple options with the Infinity Gauntlet and without it, even though, I mean, it would be impossible to say, well, let's give him an open hand and a fist hand with the Infinity Gauntlet, and then without the Infinity Gauntlet, you start having like a bunch of different hands. I mean, it wouldn't be that much, to be honest with you, because the snap hand just goes along with the fact that not only was that something they did in the movies, but it was done in the comics. So that's something they want to do, and I'm cool with that because it was more of a playful nod where they could have just made that a fist hand with the gauntlet, and this one be the open hand with the gauntlet. This could have just been a closed hand, and then that could have been, I think I already said that, closed hand, whatever. So the fact that they chose to instead do it that way, I think is fine. At the price that, I don't know what the price this thing initially started at. I know that the price I paid it for was closer in the realm of 50. I'm gonna have the link in the description for Amazon. I think it was like 40 something, almost $50. So if this is considered, it looks to be a deluxe figure in my mind because of the way the boxing is, even though I don't know if just all big figures are considered deluxe figures or not, because I haven't really been collecting Marvel Legends for the very long. If he's a deluxe figure just for being big, then I get it. If he is considered a deluxe figure for other reasons, then I would say it would have been nice if he came with more things, because recently I had shown and reviewed the Odin figure on here, and Odin has a lot of things. He also was like a $50 figure, and he has a lot of, he may have been 60, I can't remember, but he also has a lot of things with him, and worthy enough to be called deluxe figure for what he is. Now, if this figure was like, say, maybe initial price was $40, maybe you could say, okay, cool, he's a kind of deluxe figure where he has certain things, but not as much. And I know this character in the comics, for this segment in the comics, didn't have much. All he had was just him and his Infinity Gauntlet, but still, you know, if he's considered a deluxe figure in cost, say his base price would have been $50 or up, I definitely think you could have deserved more items that come along with it. Even if they were to squeeze in like a chair. I know it might seem like that's a lot or kind of big, but still you could have maybe done it in a 2-part where the back is flat and then the bottom piece that he sits on is also maybe like semi-flat with some pegs to put in it, and then you know they're behind him, and then when you take him out of the box you have to assemble them or something like that. I think wouldn't have been bad. And then here, one other thing you get a feature is a different head, replacement head. I feel like, once again, if this was a proper deluxe figure, I'm fine with the amount of hands they gave him. They could have had more than that, but fine, we'll give him that. He should have had 3 heads. If you're going to add this kind of head that's not the normal head to this saga, then you should have gave him a 3rd head, which would have been a different expression for the regular 90s Infinity Gauntlet run head. This right here is a head for, I forget the name of the comic. I don't know if it was Thanos End or I used to know the name of it. I'm not really too sure now, but it's a point in the comics that are more recent and modern, probably within the last 5 years or so, where Thanos ends up being like the last one standing, ruling over everything. He has Cosmic Ghost Rider as his herald. He was a herald of Galactus's Ghost Rider. Thanos ended up getting the best of him. He ends up having Hulk as his pet, this kind of mindless, monstrous pet on a chain, all this kind of stuff. He starts fighting the Silver Surfer, which they made a version of that Silver Surfer as well, who's like all in black. And I think I don't know if he's called like the Worthy Surfer or something like that. I forget. But anyway, post in the comments down below if you can better explain what I'm talking about, because I know you guys know what I'm talking about. But this head has so far of a connection from this version of Thanos, other than to say they're both comic book versions and his same body type was the same one that went with this head, other than the fact that, you know, he was just older. But it's not like it's a movie version, is what I'm trying to say. So it falls within the comic line. And I think, to the best of my knowledge, as far as from Marvel, this was the only, for Hasbro, this is the only Thanos that was ever made. This is traditional Thanos, so I think that's what makes him really great. But once again, like you said, this is depicting that version, and those are my thoughts in terms of just him being a deluxe figure. So I want to also, since I had on hand a Hulk figure out of the box for Marvel Legends. This is actually my kids' one, because I actually have one for my collection that I purchased. And even though that was unboxed, I bought one for my kids because one of my kids loves Hulk. And I just wanted to bring him into frame just to show you the size versus the Thanos. Now, granted, the Thanos he's in box. He's not standing completely on the ground in the box, but he is, for the most part, not too much more than, say, like 2 or 3 millimeters off ground level. But for the most part, you can see that he is a big figure, but he's not as big as the Hulk. That he still is far larger than your other typical Marvel Legends character would be. And from that same Hulk pack, this is Bruce Banner, and he doesn't stand well at all. So I'm gonna have to lean him up against these guys. So it's not a great look, but you know what? Let me just hold him side by side to it, because he's not going to stand on his own. He really has bad ability to stand, but that is in line with him, so you can get a sense of how big he would be to Thanos in regards to that. So your average figure is definitely smaller than him, and even though this Bruce Banner is skinnier than your average figure, but still he's definitely, and up close you can see like just the size difference in terms of the thickness and whatnot. So your average figure is still going to feel substantially smaller than Thanos, yet he is not bigger than Hulk, which, if we're going by the actual old school comics in terms of the size scales, obviously Marvel Legends doesn't differentiate Gray Hulk from Green Hulk in terms of the sculpt. I don't have a problem with that. So if we were just to go and say that in this case, this Gray Hulk is the same size as the Green Hulk, and we're going off the Green Hulk's size and measurements, Green Hulk traditionally in the comics during that time, and I'm sure this stayed consistent even many years later, but this is around the 93, in the 90s time frame. Green Hulk was considered larger than Thanos. Their exact sizes were, the Hulk was, this is based off the old Marvel cards, the Hulk was 7 feet tall, Thanos was 6'7", and the Hulk weighed 1,040 pounds, and Thanos weighed 980 pounds, which made him actually probably more denser, to be shorter by a good amount of inches and weigh almost the same. But nonetheless, that was the size for Green Hulk in comparison. So if you were assuming that, using this Gray Hulk as a reference of Green Hulk, you would say that this difference in size fits in line with the difference in size, for the most part, that you would say Thanos and Hulk would be. When they're fighting in a comic panel, you barely notice them being different in size from each other. They're comparable, and in this case, they are comparable, yet there's a slight difference in size. So if you're opposing them and their knees are bent, just like the comics, you see them next to each other and it almost look like they're almost the same size. And only when you stand them upright will you notice the difference in size a bit more. So I think that feels very comic accurate. Sidebar, if this was Green Hulk. Obviously this is Gray Hulk. The actual size of Gray Hulk in the cards back then was 6'6" and 900 pounds. So Gray Hulk would have been a little bit shorter than Thanos by an inch and weighed a little bit less than him by roughly about 85 pounds. So, but nonetheless, this is more depicting the Green Hulk size in gray form. And other than that, another thing I actually want to tackle on is, and sorry if the video is getting long, I like to ramble on this stuff. The time frame when Thanos came out during this time frame, obviously Thanos was out for a long time, but specifically the Infinity Gauntlet time frame. The Infinity Gauntlet was such a major event, not just because of how powerful that he was, or whatever the case is, getting the Infinity Gems. It was a big event because back then, and they also introduced Marvel Series 3 cards that came out. For you guys may not be familiar with the card series, they came out with Marvel Series 1 sometime in around maybe 89. And then at this point, which was around 93, they came out with Marvel Series 3. Now, Marvel Series 2, at the very, they depicted Thanos, they had cards for Thanos, but they also had a line in that card line, like a segment in it called like, characters' weapons or something of that sort, and or legendary weapons or something of that sort. And one of the weapons they had in it at the end of Series 2 cards, which I think came out in 1991, was the Infinity Gauntlet. But in Series 3 of the cards, they showcased a segment or how should I say, a category in that card line, Series 3, for cosmic beings. And even though the cards before it had Series 1 and Series 2 had Galactus, but that's all you had. You didn't really have any other cosmic entity, cosmic beings, real cosmic beings, not someone like Surfer who was turned cosmic based on Galactus or someone else, real cosmic beings. You've seen them in between the card series, Marvel Series 2 and Series 3 is when Infinity Gauntlet came out and you introduced, all the cosmic beings that existed, because that was the first time in the comics that you really, I'm sure they made their appearances, but for a lot of people who were, into comics at the time, that was the first time they were introduced to all the cosmic beings out there. Like I said, you knew Galactus, but now you knew the Living Tribunal, you knew Eternity. You may have seen him before, but now you knew who he was. You knew all these other ones, Master Order, this and that. They kind of really went into a semi-detailed expression of not who they were, but almost just saying, these are the upper people in the universe. These are the people these are the gods of the universe. These are the very top echelon of power. And it was like Thanos is putting them all down. And it was interesting because it just gave you an introduction to Marvel's cosmos in this 6-part series comic, and I thought that was really amazing. And from that point on, when you had the characters in Marvel Series 3, you had all of them. You had, well, not all of them, but you had Eternity, the Living Tribunal, you had the Stranger, you had Epoch, you had Ego, you had the Watchers, and you had the stats to them all also. Now, granted, Marvel stats go from 1 to 7. Almost all the cosmic beings, save for a few of them, like I think the Stranger is one of them who wasn't fully everything being a 7. Everyone else, and they didn't have all the stats in there. Marvel cards, when they did have stats, only had 6 stats at any given time, while they had a total of 9 stats. Certain different series will depict 6 of those 9 stats. In Marvel Series 3, you had strength, speed, I want to say, I think it was agility, fighting, energy projection, and mental. And I could be wrong, but I think those were what it was. All the cosmic beings had a 7, which is the top stat you can get, which means it could be anything ranging from, you know, the beginning of what a 7 is to anything beyond, you know, whatever. It just, you know, it could mean anything. The only stats that they had that were not a 7 was fighting ability, would be a 1, because these guys, they don't fight with their hands. That's just not what they do. But my point is, this comic represented more than just a guy who was powerful. It represented a chance for Marvel to really show you the cosmic entities, all the upper cosmic entities, show you their full powers on display, including showing you just, you know, just kind of really like introducing you to all those elements, all the power balances, who's who of what. Like, for example, all the other cosmic beings came to the forefront to fight Thanos. Eternity, with the ego he has on him, thought he didn't have to join the fight. And then he decided to fight Thanos later on by himself. Many of you guys already probably know the comics, so I'm probably saying something you already know. But he decided to fight Thanos afterwards. Like, he thought, I'm so powerful, way more above all the rest of the cosmic beings, that I'll fight him on my own. And even Thanos said, okay, we saved the best for last. But at that point, you realize that the cosmic beings and Eternity even went to Living Tribunal to shut it down, because Living Tribunal is that much above Eternity. So much so that Eternity is above everyone else, and Eternity could not beat Thanos with the Infinity Gauntlet, but Thanos would not have been able to beat Living Tribunal with the Infinity Gauntlet. So this was a golden age of power levels and deciding who was who and what levels was what. Which also, if you're like me, I became bothered when you introduced the later versions of the cosmic, you know, hierarchy, and you had the Beyonders who kind of took out the Living Tribunal and whatnot. This goes into a whole thing way past the review of this figure, and I'm so sorry for that, guys, but I just like rambling on the importance of sometimes the figures in that genre or generation that they came out, and whatever the case is. But anyway, that's a story for another time. You guys, as always, like, share, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.